Chapter 1. Phileas Fogg and Passepartout. I want to forget the name Passepartout. I'll call you Passepartout, said Phileas Fogg. In 1872, the Reform Club in London was a club for men only. Phileas Fogg went to the Reform Club every day. He left his house at Savile Row at 11:30 in the morning and walked to the club. He ate his lunch and his dinner there. He read the papers at the club and he played cards. He left late in the evening and walked back to Savile Row. He went to bed at night. Phileas Fogg was a cold man. He didn't talk much and nobody knew much about him. But everything in his life had to be right. His washing water had to be at 31 Celsius, not 30 and not 32. At 9:37 on the morning of 2nd October 1872, his servant James Forster brought him water at 30 Celsius, not 31 Celsius. So this servant had to go. Phileas Fogg sat at home in his Savile Row house. He waited for his new servant. The new servant came. He was about 30 years old. "You're French," said Phileas Fogg, "and your name is John." "No," said the new servant. "My name is Jean, Mr. Fogg. They call me Jean Passepartout because in French a passepartout means it can open every door. When things are bad, I can always get out. I can get out of anything." "Tell me about your work," said Phileas Fogg. "I am a good man, and I can do a lot of different jobs," said Jim Passepartout. "I was a fireman in Paris, but I left France in 1867, said Passepartout, "and I came to England. I want to be a servant. I am looking for a quiet life. People say that you are the quietest man in Britain, so I want to work for you. I want to live quietly now. I want to forget the name Passepartout." "I'll call you Passepartout," said Phileas Fogg. "What time is it?" Passepartout pulled out a big watch and looked at it. "It is 11:29, Mr. Fogg," he said. "All right. From now, at 11:29 on October 2nd, 1872, you are my servant." With those words, Phileas Fogg put on his hat and went out. There was only Passepartout and nobody else in the house. What should I do? The Frenchman thought. He went into every room in the house. He found his room and also found a timetable. Everything was there, and it started from 8 o'clock. Phileas Fogg got up at 8 o'clock. 8:23, bring tea. 9:37, bring washing water, 31 Celsius. 11:30, Phileas Fogg goes to the Reform Club. Then from 11:30 in the morning to midnight, everything was on the table. Mr. Fogg always went to bed at midnight. Passepartout smiled. "This is good for me," he thought. "I like Mr. Fogg." Chapter 2. The Bet. "We are leaving in 10 minutes for Dover," said Phileas Fogg. "We're going around the world." It was 6:10 in the evening at the Reform Club. Phileas Fogg was in the card room. He was at a card table with the 5 men, and he played a card with these 5 men every day. Phileas Fogg and the 5 men didn't usually talk when they played cards. But this evening, before the game started, the men talked about a newspaper story. A thief walked into the Bank of England and took £55,000. Then he walked out. One of the men at the card table, Ralph, worked at the Bank of England. "They'll catch the man," Ralph said. The best detectives are working on it. They know that the man is tall. He wears expensive clothes. They'll find him. Oh, I don't know, said Stewart, another man at the table. The world is a very big place. It was a big place, said Phileas Fogg. What do you mean, was? Is it smaller now? Said Stewart. Yes, said Ralph. I think Mr. Fogg is right. You can go around the world more quickly now. All right, said Stewart. You can go around the world in about 3 months. But that doesn't mean... Not 3 months, said Phileas Fogg. 80 days. Fogg is right, said Ralph. The Rothal to Allahabad Railway in India is open now. Look, today's Times newspaper has a timetable for a journey around the world. And he showed them the newspaper. Yes, said Stewart. 80 days. It looks easy on the paper, but a lot of things can happen in 80 days. They can stop you on the way. No, they can't, Mr. Stewart, said Phileas Fogg. Well, why don't you try, Mr. Fogg? Go around the world in 80 days, said Phileas Fogg. All right, I have £20,000 in bank. I'll bet all of it. £20,000? cried Ralph. Something will happen on the journey, and you'll lose all your money. Nothing will stop me, Phileas Fogg said. In the end, Phileas Fogg's 5 friends took the bet. Each person will pay you £4,000. That's £20,000. When we see you again here in the Reform Club in 80 days at the end of your journey around the world, said Ralph. Or you have to pay us £20,000. That's the bet. Phileas Fogg thought for a minute. Today is Wednesday, 2nd of October. So I have to be back here in this room in the Reform Club on Saturday, 21st of December at 8:45 in the evening. At 7:25, Phileas Fogg said good night to his friends and left the Reform Club. At 7:50, he opened the door of his house in Savile Row and went in. Mr. Fogg, is that you? Said Passepartout. He looked at the timetable. This was not on the timetable. We're leaving in 10 minutes for Dover, said Phileas Fogg. We're going around the world. Passepartout's eyes opened wide, very wide. Around the world, he said. In 80 days, said Phileas Fogg. We have to go now. Now. But your bags. I'm not taking any bags. Well, one small bag. We can buy things on the way. Bring down my coat. Wear good shoes. Move. At 8 o'clock, Passepartout was ready with the small bag. A quiet life, he thought. Where's my quiet life? Phileas Fogg was ready. He had a book in his arm, a railway and ship's timetable. He took the bag from Passepartout and put a lot of money in it. Then he gave the bag to Passepartout. Look after it, he said. There's £20,000 in it. At this station, Phileas Fogg saw his 5 friends from the Reform Club. You're here to say goodbye? That's kind, he said. I'll have stamps in my passport for each country. You can see them when I come back. We won't look at your passport, said Ralph. You're an honest man. At 8:40, Phileas Fogg and Passepartout got on the train, and at 8:45 the train started. Some days later, the police at Scotland Yard received a letter from their Detective Fix. Suez, 9th of October, to Scotland Yard, London. I'm following the bank thief, Phileas Fogg. Send a warrant to Bombay now. Chapter 3. Detective Fix. He left London quickly. He had a lot of money. Phileas Fogg was, Fix thought, the Bank of England thief. On Wednesday, 9th of October, a small thin man waited for a ship at Suez, Egypt. The ship, a fast ship, was the Mongolia. The man was Detective Fix. He was at the port because he wanted to find the thief of Bank of England. Fix looked at everybody. He wanted a tall man in expensive clothes. When the Mongolia arrived at the port, Phileas Fogg left the ship. He had to get a stamp in his passport. He went back to the ship. Fix watched him. Then the detective found Passepartout out in the town. "Can I help you?" asked Fix. "You're very kind," said Passepartout. "This is Suez?" "Yes," said Fix. "Suez in Egypt and Africa." Passepartout looked at Fix with wide eyes. "Africa," he said. "This morning I saw Paris, and now I'm here in Africa." "You don't have much time, then?" asked the detective. "No, Mr. Fogg doesn't have much time. Oh, and I have to buy some clothes. We have only one small bag for the journey. I'll show you the way to the shops." "Thank you," said Passepartout, and the two men walked through Suez. "I have to be careful about the time. The ship leaves again in a short time. You've got time for shopping," Fix answered, "and you've got time for lunch." Passepartout pulled out his big watch. "Lunch?" he said. "It's 9:52 in the morning." "No, it's 11:52, said Fix. "You have London time on your watch. That's 2 hours behind Suez time. When you go around the world, time changes. On your journey, you'll have to change the time on your watch for each new country." "What? Change the time on my watch? Never," said Passepartout. Fix smiled. 5 minutes later, he said, "Here are the shops. You can buy everything here. I think you left London quickly." "Oh, yes. Last Wednesday, Mr. Fogg came back from his club at 7:50 in the evening. He usually comes back at midnight, and then we started our journey." Fix thought about it. Then he asked, "But where's Mr. Fogg going?" "Around the world." "Around the world?" "Yes, in 80 days. He says it's for a bet." "Is he rich?" Fix asked. "I think he is," said Passepartout. The Frenchman was always ready to talk. "He is carrying a lot of money, and he buys things all the time. He gave the captain of the Mongolia a lot of money because he wanted to get to Bombay early." The detective wrote to London and asked for a warrant. Phileas Fogg was tall and wore expensive clothes. He left London quickly. He had a lot of money. Phileas Fogg was, Fix thought, the Bank of England thief. 10 minutes before the Mongolia left Suez, Fix was on the ship with a light bag and some money. He was on his way to Bombay. Chapter 4. India. "What?" said Phileas Fogg. "Are you saying that this woman wants to die with her husband?" Phileas Fogg looked at the timetable. "The Mongolia will arrive in Bombay on 22nd of October," he wrote in his little black book. But she arrived 2 days early because there was a northwest wind behind her. He wrote 2 days early in the little black book, but he did not smile. At 4:30 in the afternoon of 20th of October, everybody left the ship and went into Bombay. The train from Bombay to Calcutta leaves at 8 o'clock. Phileas Fogg told Passepartout. "Be at the railway station before then." Then he went to the passport office and had dinner at the railway station. Fix went to the police in Bombay and asked about the warrant. He could not take Phileas Fogg back to England without a warrant, but the warrant was not there. It was in the post from England, so Fix could do nothing. Passepartout looked at Bombay. Everything was interesting to the young man. He stood outside the nice temple at Malabar. He liked it, so he went inside. But Passepartout didn't know that in India he couldn't go into a temple with his shoes. "This temple is really lovely," thought Passepartout. He looked at the beautiful things in there. Suddenly, 3 men in orange clothes started to hit him. Then they threw him to the floor and took his shoes. They were very angry. They shouted something, but Passepartout didn't understand the language. But the Frenchman was young and strong. He pushed the man away, and ran out of the temple into the street. At 7:55, 5 minutes before the train left, Passepartout arrived at the station without his shoes, without a hat, and without the bag of new clothes. He found Phileas Fogg at the dinner table. Fix was at the station restaurant too. He sat behind Phileas Fogg and watched him. He listened to Passepartout and Phileas Fogg. Passepartout moved in his arms up and down when he told Phileas Fogg about the temple. The detective smiled. So, the servant did something wrong in this country, he thought. I can use that. The thief will have to stay in India, and I can wait for the warrant from England. Phileas Fogg and Passepartout sat on the train and spent 2 days on the train. Everything was different outside. Passepartout watched the many changes through the window. They were very interesting to him. Phileas Fogg was not interested. At 8 o'clock in the morning, on 22nd of October, the train stopped near the station at Rothal. A man from the railway came to the train window. Everybody, get out of the train, please, he called. Why do we have to get out? Asked Phileas Fogg. Because there's no more railway after this. It begins again at Allahabad, about 50 miles from here. But it's in the Times, said Phileas Fogg. He had the center page of the newspaper with him. Look, the paper says the railway between Rothal and Allahabad is open now. The paper is wrong. But your company sells tickets from Bombay to Calcutta, the Englishman said. Oh, yes, the railway man answered, but everybody knows that they have to go from Rothal to Allahabad on foot or on a horse. He was right. The other people on the train knew about the railway. They left the train quickly and went to the village. They took all the horses. We'll walk, said Phileas Fogg. Passepartout looked down at his feet. He did not have any shoes. His shoes were in the Malabar temple in Bombay. There's an elephant over there, he said. The man with the elephant smiled, a wide smile. A man with an elephant earns a lot of money when there isn't a railway. The man sold the elephant to Phileas Fogg for £2,000. Elephant meat is expensive, Passepartout thought. Next, they had to find a guide. They didn't know the way to Allahabad. That was easy. A young Indian from the village saw them with the elephant. Do you need a guide? He asked. He spoke English too. Every 2 hours, the guide stopped the elephant. It ate and drank some water. Phileas Fogg, Passepartout, and the guide sat under a tree. Then they started again. They moved quickly and climbed higher. By 8 o'clock in the evening, they were on top of the Vindhya Mountains. They were halfway to Allahabad. The guide stopped for the night. They started again at 6 o'clock the next morning, and at 4 o'clock in the afternoon they were near Allahabad. They were in some trees when suddenly the elephant stopped. They heard the sound of singing and loud music. The guide drove the elephant into the thickest trees. It's a dead man, said the guide quietly. They are taking a dead man to a temple. Tomorrow they will start a fire and put the dead man on the fire. Through the trees, they saw a lot of people. Some men wore the same orange clothes as the 3 men at the Malabar temple. Some men played music. Some women and children walked behind them. Then they saw a young woman. Some men were pushing her forward. She was very beautiful, but she was very weak. She couldn't walk very well. Men at the back carried a dead man in fine clothes. The dead man was important, said the guide. The young woman was his wife, and they will put her on the fire tomorrow with her dead husband. What? Said Phileas Fogg. Are you saying that this woman wants to die with her husband? Sometimes a wife wants to die when her husband dies, answered the guide. But this young woman doesn't want to die. Those people, the people in the orange clothes, say he has to do it. No, said Passepartout, but can't you run away from them? They put something in her food, the guide said. Look, she's very tired. Soon she will go to sleep. We'll get her out of here, said Phileas Fogg. Please think before you try that, said the guide. These people are dangerous. But Mr. Fogg, the bet, said Passepartout. Phileas Fogg looked at the timetable. I'm 1 day early. We can use the day well and get the young woman away from here. Well, said the guide, we can follow them, but we cannot go too near. They're going to temple about 2 miles from here. I know a little about the young wife, too. Her name is Auda. Her father had a big company in Bombay. But her father and mother died, and she had to marry that old man. We cannot do anything now, but I will help you when it gets dark. Chapter 5 Auda. The old man was not dead. He stood up and took the young woman in his arms. Then he ran through the fire. People sang and shouted. The noise came from the trees. The guide stopped the elephant and they walked. They could see the temple, white in the dark night. Some men with guns sat around it and watched. The young woman is inside the temple, said the guide quietly. The dead man was on top of some wood. When the sun comes up, they will put the woman next to her husband. Then they will start the fire. We'll have to think of something. We have to get the young woman out of there, said Phileas Fogg. But Phileas Fogg and the guide did not have any ideas. And the men with guns around the temple did not go to sleep. They watched. They watched very carefully. After an hour or two, the guide said, Mr. Fogg, where's your servant? Phileas Fogg could not answer that. Passepartout was not there. The sun came up in the east. The people woke up and carried the dead man noisily to the wood. Then some men brought Auda out of the temple. She did not move when they put her down, next to her dead husband. They put something in her food again that morning. Some men brought fire to the wood. Phileas Fogg stood up and opened his mouth. He wanted to shout, Stop! Get down, said the guide. They will kill us. But suddenly everything changed. The people shouted, and they fell down on their faces to the ground. The old man was not dead. He stood up and took the young woman in his arms. Then he ran through the fire. He walked over the people on the ground. Then he carried the woman easily in strong arms to Phileas Fogg and the guide. Let's go, he said quickly. It was Passepartout. A minute later, the 3 men and the young woman were on the elephant. Auda slept and knew nothing about it. The sun was high and hot in the sky. It was nearly 10 o'clock in the morning. The young guide said, there is Allahabad. The railway starts again there. The train journey to Calcutta is about day and the night. Phileas Fogg took a room at the railway station for Auda. He sent Passepartout into the town for clothes and other things for the young woman. When the train was ready, Auda was better. Before they got on the train, Phileas Fogg paid the guide. That's your money, he said, but you helped us in other ways. Would you like the elephant? The young guide gave a big smile. That was his only answer. On the journey to Calcutta, Auda learned about her night in the temple and about Passepartout and the fire. She said thank you again and again, but she was afraid of her husband's family. She didn't want them to catch her again. I'll take you to Hong Kong, Phileas Fogg said. and you can stay there." It was kind, but he spoke quite coldly. She happily said, "Oh, thank you. I have an uncle in Hong Kong. He will look after me." The train got to Calcutta at 7 o'clock in the morning. Phileas Fogg had 5 hours before the ship left for Hong Kong. Chapter 6. Calcutta. Passepartout felt bad. A bet of £20,000, he thought, and we will lose it because I went into a temple in shoes. Phileas Fogg, Passepartout, and Auda left the station at Calcutta. They wanted to go to the passport office and then to the ship. But a policeman came to them and said, "Are you Mr. Phileas Fogg, and is this your servant?" "Yes." "Please follow me." Phileas Fogg's face did not change. He didn't feel anything, or he did not show it. "Can this young woman come with us?" he asked. The policeman said, "Yes." At the police station, the policeman took them to a large room with a big cupboard. Then the 3 men in orange clothes from the Malabar temple came in. One man carried Passepartout's shoes. "The temple in Bombay," said Passepartout. "The men from the temple were in Calcutta, because Fix brought them from Bombay." Fix told the Calcutta police about the Malabar temple. Now he was in the big cupboard in the room, and he listened to everything. The policeman said, "People from other countries cannot go inside the temple. It's not right. You will have to stay in prison. You can tell your story next week." Fix was very happy about that. The warrant will arrive before then, he thought. Passepartout felt bad. He was not afraid of prison, but he thought of Phileas Fogg and his bet. A bet of £20,000, he thought, and we will lose it because I went into a temple in shoes. Phileas Fogg's face did not change. He said, "I want bail." "Yes, you can have bail," said the policeman. Fix in the cupboard was angry. "But," the policeman said, "because you do not live in this country, bail will be £1,000 for each person. You will have to come back here in a week, and then you will get your money back. You can tell your story then." Fix was happy about that. He thought, "Fox won't pay £2,000 of bail money. He'll stay in prison and wait." To Fix, Phileas Fogg was a bank thief, not a man with £20,000 bet. "I'll pay," said Phileas Fogg. "You will get this money back," said the policeman, "when you come back next week. But now you can go on bail." Passepartout turned to the 3 men from Temple. "Please," he said, "give me my shoes back." The Frenchman put on his shoes. Then Fogg, Auda, and Passepartout went to the port as quickly as they could. Fix followed. He was very angry. "That's £2,000 of the Bank of England's money," he thought. "I'll have to take Fogg back to England quickly." Chapter 7. Hong Kong. "Who am I? You're working for those 5 men from the Reform Club," smiled Passepartout. On the ship to Hong Kong, the Rangoon, Auda learned a little about Phileas Fogg. She liked him. Fix was on the ship too. He thought about the warrant. Was it now on its way to Hong Kong? On the first day, Passepartout did not know that Fix was on the ship too. But then he saw the detective. "What is Mr. Fix doing on this ship?" the Frenchman thought. "We saw him in Suez, and now here he is again. Is he following us? Why?" Passepartout thought about it, and then he understood. He's following Mr. Fogg. He's working for the 5 men at the Reform Club. He's watching Mr. Fogg because of the bet. Passepartout was angry with the 5 men, but he did not tell Phileas Fogg about Fix. The 5 men were Mr. Fogg's friends. Passepartout didn't want Mr. Fogg to think badly of them. He really liked Mr. Phileas Fogg now. He wanted him to win his bet. It was important to him. The weather was bad, and the Rangoon arrived at Hong Kong 24 hours late. Phileas Fogg, Passepartout, and Auda went to the office of the ship company. Are we too late for the Carnatic? Phileas Fogg asked. The timetable says she left Hong Kong for Yokohama yesterday. No, said the man at the office. The Carnatic had a problem with one engine. She's here. She'll leave tomorrow. Thank you, said Phileas Fogg. Phileas Fogg took Auda to the best hotel in Hong Kong. Then he went out and looked for her uncle. An hour later, he came back. Auda's uncle did not live in Hong Kong now. He was in Holland. Auda didn't speak for a minute. She sat with her head in her hands. Then, very quietly, she asked, "What do I do now, Mr. Fogg?" "Don't worry," said Phileas Fogg. "Come to Europe. But I will be one more problem for you. You're not a problem, and you won't change our timetable. Passepartout?" "Yes, Mr. Fogg. Go to the Carnatic Passepartout and get 3 tickets to Yokohama." Passepartout left the hotel with a smile on his face. He wanted to have Auda with them on the journey. She always spoke kindly to him. To her, he was friend and not a servant. When a Passepartout arrived at the port, he saw a very unhappy Fix by the Carnatic. Fix was unhappy because the warrant was in Bombay and not in Hong Kong. The Carnatic could take Phileas Fogg away from Hong Kong before the warrant arrived. Passepartout smiled at Fix's face. The rich men of the Reform Club are going to lose their money, the Frenchman thought, and Mr. Fix is unhappy about that. "Are you going to buy a ticket for the Carnatic?" asked Passepartout. He laughed, but Fix said nothing. The Frenchman went onto the Carnatic and paid for 3 tickets to Yokohama. The Carnatic's captain spoke to him. "Engine is fine now," he said. "The problem was smaller than we thought. The ship will leave at 8 o'clock this evening, not tomorrow." "Good," said Passepartout. "I will tell Mr. Fogg. He will be happy." When he left the ship, Fix came to him. "Before you see Mr. Fogg," said Fix, "won't you have a drink with me in this bar?" There was a bar at the port, near the ships. "Well, yes, thank you. I'm quite thirsty," the Frenchman said. In the bar, Fix asked Passepartout, "Who am I?" "You are working for those 5 men from the Reform Club," smiled Passepartout. "You are watching Mr. Fogg." Fix thought for a minute. He did not have the warrant, and he had to stop Fogg. "Yes, I'm watching Fogg," said Fix, "but I'm not working for the men from the club. I'm a policeman. I'm following Fogg because he's a bank thief. You have to help me, or I'll get a warrant for you too. I'll put you in prison with him. Now, do you want to help me or him?" Passepartout was angry. "Him," he said, and he started to leave the bar. Passepartout was on his way back to Phileas Fogg. Fix had to stop him. Passepartout knew about the ship's new timetable, but Phileas Fogg didn't. So Fix put something in Passepartout's drink. "Wait," called Fix. He smiled. "Why don't you finish your drink before you go? It's hot out there." Fix smiled again. Passepartout stopped. He looked angrily at Fix, but he took the drink. He sat down and finished it. Then he quietly went to sleep in his chair. Fix left him in the bar. Chapter 8. To Japan. They saw a big American ship going out of the port. "Too late!" cried the seaman. "Your ship is leaving." Phileas Fogg took Auda to the best shops in Hong Kong. They went from one shop to another shop. He pulled money out of his bag and bought her dresses and other clothes. Then they went back to the hotel. Night came, and there was no Passepartout. In the morning, too, Passepartout was not there. Phileas Fogg and Auda went to the port. Perhaps Passepartout was at the ship, but the servant was not there, and the Carnatic was also not there. An Englishman spoke to Phileas Fogg. Did you have tickets for the Carnatic? The man was fixed. I wanted to go to Yokohama on the Carnatic too, the detective said. She left yesterday evening. We'll have to wait a week for the next ship. Fix smiled, but the detective's smile left when Phileas Fogg said, "But there are other ships in the port of Hong Kong. The Carnatic is not the only ship. Let's go and find one." Phileas Fogg looked for a ship for a long time. "Are you looking for a boat?" asked a seaman. "Is your boat ready to leave?" "Yes, it's a small boat, number 43. Do you know these small boats? They help the big ships when they arrive at the port, and this boat is the best in Hong Kong." "Is she fast?" "Oh, yes, 8 or 9 miles an hour." "Will you take me to Yokohama?" "I had tickets for the Carnatic, but she left early." "I have to be in Yokohama on November 14th, and I have to catch the ship for San Francisco there. I can give you £100 a day, and £200 more if we reach Yokohama before 14th of November." "But why Yokohama?" said the seaman. "We can go to Shanghai, only 800 miles away from Hong Kong. The ship for San Francisco starts from Shanghai. Then it goes to Yokohama before it goes to America." This was very interesting to Phileas Fogg. "That's not in my timetable," he said. "Shanghai? And when does the ship for San Francisco leave Shanghai?" "On November 11th, at 7 in the evening. So we have 4 days. With the wind in the southeast, we can get to Shanghai in 4 days." "When can we start?" asked Phileas Fogg. "In an hour. We'll get food and water first. Is your boat or a company's?" "Oh, she's my boat. My name is Bunsby, and the Tankadere is mine." "Here's £200, said Phileas Fogg. Then he turned to Fix. "Do you want to come with us?" Well, yes." "In half an hour then," said Phileas Fogg. "But what about?" Auda said. And then she stopped. She was very unhappy about Passepartout, but she understood about the bet. "I'm going to do everything possible for Passepartout," said Phileas Fogg. "He went with Auda to the police in Hong Kong. He left a letter for Passepartout and money for his ticket back to Europe." At 3 o'clock, Phileas Fogg, Auda, and Fix were on the Tankadere, and the little boat started her journey to Shanghai. The wind helped, and the boat moved fast to the northeast. With the wind behind them, they cut through the sea very near China. But in the early morning of the second day, the seaman Bunsby came to Phileas Fogg. "There's too much wind now," he said. "There are these very strong winds near China. They're dangerous." Then it started to rain. The weather was very bad. The Tankadere started to go up and down in the sea, then left and right, up and down in the wind under a black sky. With the wind behind them and the heavy rain, it was difficult for Bunsby. Fix was afraid and very unhappy. Auda watched Phileas Fogg. His face didn't change. It was night. The wind was worse and the rain was worse. Auda fell before Phileas Fogg could catch her. "I'm fine," cried Auda. "Forget about me." Bunsby talked to his seaman, and then came to Phileas Fogg. "Mr. Fogg," he shouted above the noise of the wind and the rain. The seaman's face was wet with rain. "Mr. Fogg, I think that we'll have to find a port in China. We'll have to stop there." "Yes," said Phileas Fogg. "But which port?" said the seaman. "I only know one port," said Phileas Fogg. He spoke quietly, but Bunsby could hear him above the wind and rain. "Shanghai." The next day was better. The sky was blue again. The boat went through the sea faster. At 7 o'clock, they were 3 miles from Shanghai. They saw a big American ship going out of the port. "Too late," cried the seaman. "Your ship is leaving." Phileas Fogg said, "Use your radio. Say there's a problem. We want their help." When the Carnatic left Hong Kong for Japan on 7th of November, Passepartout was on the ship. When Fix walked out of the bar in Hong Kong, Passepartout was asleep in his chair. But then a waiter saw him and gave him some water. His head hurt very badly, and he couldn't think. But one word went around and around in his head. Carnatic, Carnatic. He walked very, very slowly out of the bar. He could see the Carnatic from the bar door, and he walked to it. Then he fell down for the last time. The next morning, he woke up and he was on the ship. It was a sunny day, and Passepartout watched the blue sea. He felt better. He went to the ship's office and asked for Phileas Fogg. But Phileas Fogg was not on the ship. Auda was not on the ship. Passepartout sat down. What happened? He thought. And then he remembered. Mr. Fogg didn't know the ship's new timetable. Passepartout thought he will lose the bet because of me and because of Fix too. Passepartout remembered the bar in Hong Kong. I will kill Fix, he thought. Passepartout was on his way to Japan. He could not change that. What can I do when I arrive in Japan? He thought. I have no money. I have ticket, so I can eat on the ship. But after that, I'll eat tomorrow, he thought. Then I won't have to eat in Japan. So he ate Phileas Fogg's food, Auda's food, and his food too. On the morning of 13th of November, the Carnatic arrived in the port of Yokohama. To San Francisco. The warrant arrived from Hong Kong, but it was too late. Fix couldn't use the warrant in Japan or America. Near Shanghai, the captain of General Grant's ship listened to his radio. A smaller boat, Tangier, wanted his help. The American ship stopped next to the Tangier. Phileas Fogg gave Bunsby £550 and climbed onto the General Grant. He paid for 3 tickets to the San Francisco, and then Auda and Fix got onto the American ship too. The first stop was Yokohama. When the General Grant arrived there on the morning of 14th of November, Fogg and Auda went to the Carnatic, but Passepartout was not there. Phileas Fogg and Auda looked for Passepartout in the town. They asked questions everywhere. They only had one day before the General Grant left for San Francisco. Phileas Fogg and Auda walked through the streets of Yokohama, north, south, east, and west, but they couldn't find Passepartout. On their way back to the port, they looked in the gardens. There were a lot of gardens in Yokohama, and in the last garden before the port, they saw Passepartout on a chair in the sun. The servant was very happy, and they all went quickly to the General Grant. In Yokohama, Fix went to the police. The warrant arrived from Hong Kong, but it was too late. Fix couldn't use the warrant in Japan or America. Passepartout saw Fix on the ship the next day, and the Frenchman hit the detective. Fix fell down on his back. Do you feel better? Asked Fix. He got up slowly. Yes, for now. Let's talk. Talk? Yes, I want to help your Mr. Fogg now. Oh, said Passepartout. So now you think that Mr. Fogg is not a thief? No, he's a thief, and I have a warrant for him. Passepartout started to hit him again, so Fix said quickly, Wait, I can't use the warrant here, but Mr. Fogg is going to England. I can use the warrant there, so I want to help him. He wants to get to England quickly, and I want him to get there too, so I can help you now, and you can help me. We can be friends. Friends never, said Passepartout. But you can help Mr. Fogg. That's fine. I'll help him. A Scotland Yard detective can do a lot of things. But don't tell me about the bar in Hong Kong, and don't say I'm a detective, then I'll help him. Passepartout thought hard but said nothing. The General Grant had the wind behind her, and good engine too. On 3rd of December, she went through the Golden Gate and into San Francisco. Chapter 10. Across America. They heard guns and shouts. Passepartout looked out of the window. The Indians were on fast horses. They had to wait for the train from San Francisco to New York, and train will leave at 6 o'clock in the evening. Phileas Fogg went with Auda and got a stamp in his passport. Passepartout bought guns for the railway journey. The Sioux Indians were dangerous. At 5:45, Phileas Fogg, Auda, and Passepartout were at the station. The train was ready, and there was Fix again. Phileas Fogg couldn't understand it. They all got on the train. The journey time was 7 days. Phileas Fogg wanted to catch a ship from New York to Liverpool on 11th of December. On the first day, at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Passepartout looked out of the window and saw some buffaloes. He saw hundreds of the big animals, and then thousands of them. They walked in front of the train, and the train had to stop. Some people on the train were angry because the train had to stop on a hot day. They had to sit there and wait. But Phileas Fogg wasn't angry. He didn't look at his watch. He sat quietly and waited. In 3 hours, the thousands of buffaloes moved slowly across the railway, and then the train could start again. The next morning, everybody on the train heard the Sioux Indians. They heard guns and shouts. Passepartout looked out of the window. The Indians were on fast horses. They wanted to get on the train and take everybody's money. But a lot of people on the train had guns and they fought. The Sioux Indians killed the train driver. The Sioux wanted to stop the train, but he did not understand the engine. The train went faster, not slower. They were very near the station at Fort Kearny, and there were soldiers there. The people on the train wanted to stop the train at the station. Then soldiers could help them. But somebody had to get to the engine and stop the train. Passepartout called, "I will go." He climbed out of the window and went to the engine. Indians didn't see him. Then Passepartout stopped the engine quite near Fort Kearny. Other people from the train walked to Fort Kearny and talked to the soldiers. The soldiers came back to the train. The Sioux ran away, but they took 3 people from the train with them. Passepartout was one of the 3. Auda started to cry, but Phileas Fogg said to her, "I'll get him back." The captain gave Phileas Fogg 30 soldiers, and they went after the Indians. Fix wanted to go with Phileas Fogg, but Phileas Fogg said, "Please stay here and look after Auda." He walked away, and Auda watched him. It started to snow. More and more snow fell out of a dark sky. Phileas Fogg and the 30 soldiers didn't come back that day or the next night. Fix and Auda waited at Fort Kearny, but the train left without them. The next morning, Fix, Auda, and the soldiers at Fort Kearny heard a shout. The 30 soldiers were back with Phileas Fogg, Passepartout, and the 2 other people from the train. "The train left without us," Fix told Phileas Fogg. "The next train will leave this evening." But that was too late. Phileas Fogg was now 20 hours behind his timetable. They could not arrive in the New York by train before their ship the China left. Chapter 11. Across the Atlantic. "I sent for you, Captain, because I want to buy your ship." "No." How could Phileas Fogg win his bet now? No ship in his book of ship and train timetables. could get him to London on December 21st. In New York, Phileas Fogg looked around the port for a fast ship. He wanted to buy one. He saw the Henrietta and spoke to the captain. "Are you leaving New York, Captain?" "In an hour," said the captain. He was a hard man, and his answer was unfriendly. "Where are you going?" "To Bordeaux." "Can you take us with you?" "No, I don't take people. Look in your timetable for a nice ship. I take things from port to port." "Fast?" asked Phileas Fogg. "Do you take things fast?" "Yes, very fast. The Henrietta does 12 miles an hour. Will you take me and 3 other people to Liverpool, Captain? What's your name?" "My name's Speedy," and the answer is no. "Then I'll buy the ship from you." "No." Phileas Fogg thought for a minute. Then he said, "Will you take us to Bordeaux? I can give you $2,000. For each person?" "Yes." Captain Speedy thought about it. $8,000. "We're leaving at 9, he said. Phileas Fogg, Auda, Passepartout, and Fix were on the ship when she left New York at 9 o'clock. The next day, 13th of December, Phileas Fogg was captain of the ship. Captain Speedy was in his room, and 2 seamen watched him carefully. He couldn't leave the room. He shouted, but he couldn't get out. This happened on that day. Phileas Fogg wanted to go to Liverpool. The captain didn't want to go there. But the seamen hated their captain, and Phileas Fogg gave them some money, so they were happy about the new plan. Now, the captain had to stay in his room. Auda was not very happy about it, but Passepartout enjoyed it. Phileas Fogg was a very good ship's captain. Perhaps he was a seaman when he was younger. With her fast engine and the wind behind her, the Henrietta moved quickly over the water. But one of the seamen said, "Mr. Fogg, this engine can go faster. We have to put more wood on the fire." "And where do we get more wood?" "From the ship. They built everything on it from wood." "Thank you," said Phileas Fogg. "I have to think about it." He walked around the ship and looked at the wood. Then he called Passepartout. "Bring Captain Speedy to me." Captain Speedy ran to Phileas Fogg. He wanted to kill him. "Thief!" he shouted. "You took my ship. Where are we?" 770 miles from Liverpool," said Fogg. "But I sent for you, Captain, because I want to buy your ship." "No, no, no! I'm going to put some of it on the fire, so the engine can take us to Liverpool faster. My ship, this ship cost $50,000. "Here's 60,000, said Phileas Fogg, and he gave the captain the money. 12,000 pounds. Oh, Captain Speedy was suddenly a different man. The Henrietta cost $50,000, but she was 20 years old. You only want the wood? I'll have the engine. Oh, yes, I'm only buying the wood. Thank you, said the captain. And so, at 11:40 on December 21st, Phileas Fogg put his foot on the ground in Liverpool, and at 11:41 Fix said, "Phileas Fogg, I'm a Scotland Yard detective. Please come with me to the nearest police station." Chapter 12. The End of the Journey. Phileas Fogg moved quickly for the first and last time in his life. He hit Fix very hard. Phileas Fogg was in a police station in Liverpool. He looked at his watch. 2 o'clock. He had to be at the Reform Club before 8:45. At 2:33, there was a lot of noise in the police station. The door opened, and Fix ran in. His face was red. "Mr. Fogg," he cried, "I'm sorry. I'm very, very sorry. My mistake. Bank of England thief is in prison. I was on the ship, so I didn't know." The Phileas Fogg moved quickly for the first and last time in his life. He hit Fix very hard. Fix fell on the floor and stayed there. Passepartout and Auda came in, and they all went quickly to Liverpool railway station. The London train was not there. They were too late. Phileas Fogg paid for a train. They were the only people on it. But when the train arrived in London, the clock showed 8:50. Phileas Fogg was 5 minutes late. Auda and Passepartout were more unhappy about the bet than Phileas Fogg. These good men had £20,000 with them at the start of the journey, and now he had £1,000. He also had £20,000 in Baring's Bank, but he had to give it to his 5 friends in the Reform Club. At home in Savile Row, Phileas Fogg stayed in his room all day. He thought about money and made plans. At 7:30 in the evening, he came down and spoke to Auda. He was not sad and he was not excited. He looked at Auda and smiled. "Auda," he said, "I'm sorry. I brought you to England, and now I have these money problems. Are you unhappy now?" "Unhappy?" said Auda. She couldn't tell him. "I was rich before the bet," said Phileas Fogg. "I brought you here to a good life, away from your dangerous life in India. But now I don't have much money. But Auda, can I give this money to you, please?" Auda stood up. "I don't want any money, but I want to be with you. I want to be your wife. Please ask me." She gave him her hand. Phileas Fogg looked into her beautiful eyes. There was love in them. "You know," he asked, "do you know that I love you?" "Yes," she said. Phileas Fogg called Passepartout, and he came quickly. Mr. Fogg had Auda's hand in his hand. Passepartout saw that, and he was very, very happy. "Do you think, Passepartout, that you can speak to Mr. Wilson at my church?" "Is it too late in the day?" said Phileas Fogg. Passepartout smiled. "It's never too late," he said. It was 8:05. "For tomorrow, Monday?" he asked. "For tomorrow, Monday," said Phileas Fogg and Auda. Passepartout ran out. At 8:35 he was back. He was red in the face and he couldn't speak. "What is it?" asked Phileas Fogg. "Mr. Fogg, please, Mr. Fogg, tomorrow, you and Auda, not possible." "Not possible? Why?" asked Phileas Fogg. "Because tomorrow is Sunday." "Monday," said Fogg. "No, today's Saturday." "No, it's not." "Yes, it is," cried Passepartout. "We made a mistake. We arrived in England a day early. But you only have 10 minutes. Let's go, Mr. Fogg. You will have to run to the Reform Club. You do it in 25 minutes every day, but today you have only 10 minutes. Run, Mr. Fogg, run." He pulled Phileas Fogg to the door. Phileas Fogg ran, and he thought about his mistake. Of course, the time changes in every country. When you go around the world to the west, you lose one day. But when you go around the world to the east, you have one more day. But now, was he too late? Phileas Fogg ran through the London. Phileas Fogg's friends were at the card table in the Reform Club that evening. When the clock said 8:25, a steward said, "In 20 minutes he'll be too late. The last train from Liverpool arrived at 7:23, and the next one arrives at 12:10. We're going to win our bet." Nobody said anything. They were not really happy. They didn't really want to win the bet. They liked Phileas Fogg, so they played cards and said nothing. 8:43, said a steward. 2 more minutes. The 5 men looked sadder and sadder. They watched the door and waited. A moment, a very short moment before 8:45, Phileas Fogg opened the door and said quietly, "Here I am, my friends." "Now I'm a rich man again," said Phileas Fogg, "so I'll ask you again. Do you want to be my wife?" "Yes," said Auda. "But you were a poor man when you asked me, and now you're a rich man again, so do you want to be my husband?" Passepartout did not wait for the answer. He ran to the church and told Mr. Wilson.